How's it going, everyone? Carlo here from All You Can Board. As always, I'm here with my cousin Dylan, and today we are doing another video in our top games we want to buy at X dollar amount sort of series. We've done a couple of these videos before, so today we're going to be doing $20, $40, $60, $80, and $100. So we've each picked 5 games, one for each of the categories. That number is just the maximum dollar value, so it has to be that amount or lower. And we're only going with games that are kind of like in stock currently. So no like Grail games, nothing out of print. This is in Canadian dollars because we are located here in Canada. I think that's pretty much all you need to know.
Do they have to be new games or can they be anything?
They can be anything. It can be just any game at all.
What's your oldest game?
Let me think. It's probably...
Don't tell me what it is.
No, but it's probably from the 90s, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Early 90s,
wow,
I think,
really?
if I'm right about the year. Okay. Early or mid 90s, I think.
Okay, none of mine are very old. I don't think.
I have one or two old ones.
I think my oldest one might be like 2019.
Okay. So, yeah. Fair enough.
All right, I'm starting things off here.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you have trouble picking these for any categories? Were there any categories where you're like, oh, I don't want any games at this amount, really?
I feel like the 100 pick is always a little difficult because there's not that many these days that I'm like... have on my radar, on my list. I'm like, I need to buy this game, or I want to.
And
buy
you have
this
to be
soon.
extra sure when it's that much money you're spending, right? You have to really want it.
Yeah, and I feel like the ones that I have in my collection or have recently got or I'm about to get that are at that price point, I've backed on Kickstarter, which kind of doesn't count.
Right.
So like Sworn, for instance.
Right. Okay.
But I did find one that I know I do want to get at some point. I can't say I'm going to be rushing out to get it, but...
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm not going to start at my $100 pick, though. I'm going to start at my $20 pick. Yep. So my $20 pick, I believe I've talked about this on the channel before, and I should have gone and dug up where it was. I think it was probably a new games video, but I can't remember for sure. And this is a little card game, and it comes in like just under $20, and it's called Gift of Tulips. And it is really, really cool. And the thing that really caught my attention off the bat, which is a lot of times with games these days, and honestly with books, and honestly with video games, pretty much everything is just the way it looks, the cover. Yeah. I judge everything by its cover first and foremost. I was at the bookstore today, and I literally just go up and down the aisles, and I'm like, oh, what's a good cover? And if I find a good cover, I read the back and see if I'm interested in the book. So Gift of Tulips is a really simple little card game. It plays 2 to 6 players, which is something right off the bat I really like because these simple, not like high rules overhead games that accommodate large amounts of players are just awesome to have in the collection because you can play at almost any player count. Interesting with this one too, it's also rated as being best with 2 to 3, which normally with these kind of games that go up to 6, it tends to be like, 3 and higher is where it lands, right? So, essentially what happens is there's going to be tulip cards in 4 different colors, and each tulip can come in, I think, 4 denominations as well, or it's 2 to 4 is like the card value of them or whatever. And on your turn, I can't remember exactly how many cards it is you're drawing, but I think it's just 2 cards that you draw off the deck, and you have to decide if you're going to keep, this reminded me of Biblios, you have to decide if you're going to keep one for yourself to score it, if you're going to give one to one of your opponents to, I think, allow them to score, but you also get giving points for having gifted it to them, or then you put it into the secret deck, which is kind of like Biblio, so you put it into the face down pile. But and I guess in many ways, I think what it is, I haven't realized what draws me to this game is the similarities to Biblios. Because Biblios has the dice that is manipulating what each one's going to score for at the end of the game.
Without knowing who's going to even score them until the end,
This one's a little bit different, but you are still manipulating like what is scoring. But I believe the way it works is that each of the 4 colors of tulips, the way it's ranked with this open like card information on the center of the table is I think it's like whatever's in 3rd and 4th place is what you score for yourself, and whatever's in 1st and 2nd place is what you score when you give to an opponent or something like that.
Okay.
Something like that. Like honestly, and I should have stressed this from the beginning. With a lot of games that I haven't purchased yet, I'm the type of person that I don't dig like right into the rules. I just find like 1 or 2 threads that I'm interested in, and I say, yep, I want to try it, unless it's a game that's going to cost me like huge amounts of money, and I need to be sure.
Yeah, like Kickstarter all-in campaign or something.
For a $20 card game like this, if I'm interested in one thing, I'm likely just going to want to pick it up or play it. So again, I might be getting some of the rules wrong, but essentially you're manipulating which ones are going to score what points in the game, and whether you want to keep these cards for yourself, give them to your opponent. So it just seems like one of those really simple card games that honestly the artwork's beautiful, and the fact that it accommodates so many players, and is also, despite accommodating so many players, is good at 2 and 3.
Right.
I mean, it's just one of those games that I feel like just getting it for $20 is going to have like just so much value there for what I'm paying for it. So I believe I talked about it on the channel at some point, and I honestly can't remember. Maybe I just talked about it in my head or something.
Definitely the first time I've heard of this. Do you know who designed it or who published it or anything?
No, I do have it here. Let me just look it up so I can get that right. It is designed by Sarah Perry, and it's from Weird Giraffe Games.
Okay, not familiar with the designer or publisher. So.
Yeah, so it's anyways, everything about it sounds really cool. I think it's a 2020. Oh, it's a 2022 game. I thought it was 2021.
Oh,
so it is a newer game.
But it is out in retail.
It is out in retail. Yeah, I noticed it in the store, at least here in Canada. We should have mentioned all these prices are Canadian prices.
Yeah, so, I mentioned at the start.
Oh, you did. Okay. Yeah. So if you're watching this in the States, everything we mentioned here, you're actually gonna be able to get it cheaper, which is great for you. But yeah, that is Gift of Tulips. That's my $20 pick, and I'm actually probably gonna put this into the next shopping cart next to my order because it's just an easy one to toss in there.
Cool. Nice. Okay. That's a surprise pick. I did not see that coming. Obviously, because I didn't even know the game existed.
It was kind of like when I said Enchanted Plumes is my pick.
Yes. Yeah. Same thing. That one I at least had heard the name before, even though I didn't know anything. This is just totally out of left field. But okay, so my $20 pick is one that you are very familiar with. We've only played it. Well, at least I have only on Board Game Arena so far, and that is Six Nimmt. So this is an amazing little small box card game. It's just cards. At least I think so, right? There's no chips or tokens or anything. Yeah, it's just cards. Yeah. It plays 2 to 10 players. So I wouldn't say, like, I would never suggest really playing it with like 2 or 3 or even, I feel like 9 or 10 might be a little bit too chaotic, but I feel like anywhere in that sort of 5 to 7 or 8 is like the sweet spot. But basically there's a deck of, I think it's 105 numbered cards. Each one is unique, and they'll just have a number, and then they'll have these little bull symbols. And the whole point of the game is you're trying not to end up taking cards. So there's a certain number of rows on the table based on the number of players. Everyone gets dealt a hand of cards, and everyone starts with like 60-some points or whatever. And when you take cards that have bulls off the table and you gain them in your supply, the number of bull heads is how many points you lose. And basically, when everyone has emptied out their hands, if any player is below 0 in the negative, that triggers the end of the game, and whoever has the most points left wins. So the way they're actually playing cards and stuff is every round, everyone picks a card simultaneously and puts it face down. Then when everyone is picked, you flip the card. And then there's these rows with kind of, the cards have to go in ascending order from lowest to highest. So the cards kind of, once everyone reveals, you don't know where your card's going to go basically until all the cards go face up, and then you figure out which rows they go in. Whoever's card ends up in that last slot, I think it's the 6th slot, has to take all 5 of the cards to the left of them, so you gain those, you basically lose a bunch of those points, and then your card now becomes the first card in that row, and you just keep playing through like that. Super simple game, and there's a couple reasons why this is on my next kind of to-buy list. I've only played it on Board Game Arena, and I've really enjoyed it, but I knew from the very first play that Board Game Arena wasn't the ideal place to play it. Even if you're doing real time, like we tried this early on in the pandemic with like voice chat, and it was still hilarious, a lot of fun, but I feel like that sort of agony of when you get stuck and you're figuring out like, oh, I'm safe, and then wait, oh no, I'm getting stuck with these cards. Like, I want to play that around the table with a whole bunch of people, and I think this is truly one of those games that transcends any age difference. Like, this is one of those ones I could truly see at a family gathering. You could play this with a 4 or 5-year-old and like a 100-year-old, and I don't think I have a single game in my collection that I can think of where you could sit someone down who doesn't know how to play games, and they could be part of the activity playing the game without even knowing the rules to start. You could sit them down and say, here's a hand of cards, Grandma, just like pick a card and play it, and we'll just see what happens. And you can just pick a card and whatever. So I can see this as maybe a game I can like play with my parents one day. I don't really game with them at all and stuff. So yeah, I just think it's cheap, wide player count, tons of fun, just a classic card game. And I think it was, from the 90s, designed by Wolfgang Kramer. Amazing game. Yeah,
this is one, I don't know if I'll ever get it, the physical version. The only thing I've ever wondered about the physical version is whether I'm going to get frustrated having to manage all the cards and shuffling constantly or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, it probably, how many games do we have where you have to deal with that? Just it's a small price to pay to get like the physical interaction with everyone around the table. But I've seen it in stores locally here, but not called Six Nimmt, and I don't know whether there's any other changes, but there's one like Take 5. Take 5, which I don't know if there actually is any changes or if it's literally just a name change.
I don't think so either. Yeah, I don't know if you know, because you're always taking 5s. So why is it Six Nimmt? It's because the 6th one means you take the 5, but
because I have seen Take 5 just over here at our local
board game
store.
Raj has it too.
Oh right, there you go. But that's a great pick, and it's one that is this the one from 1990?
This somewhere in the 90s, I think.
No, this is a great game. We're playing it right now in Board Game Arena, and it's so much fun.
We're
playing with a bunch of our patrons actually.
Exactly.
Which if you want to get in on the action, come into our Patreon
exactly.
No, great pick.
Cool. Yeah, that is Six Nimmt, Wolfgang Kramer. So what's your 40 and under?
my 40 and under is going from Gift of Tulips to Paint the Roses.
Oh, okay.
So
nice pick.
Continue a little theme here. This is one that I've heard about before, and I think it was this one that was on Kickstarter and I almost backed, or it was Gift of Tulips. One of those was I almost backed on crowdfunding, but it's been on my radar ever since it actually went out into the wild or like semi-wild. People were receiving it. What I like about this one is beyond the fact that it has the Wonderland theme, which, you know, I'm not like a huge Alice in Wonderland fan, but I respect like the whimsical and magical and like weird nature of the imagery and the theme and everything. Yeah. That I think that's really cool. But on top of that, it's a cooperative game, but it's a cooperative game where I believe what you're trying to do is like you basically are trying to convey clues to the other people you're working with by the tiles that you put down onto like the garden board. Yep. And that's supposed to indicate what your secret whim card is. That is what the queen wants you to essentially accomplish. And as soon as you accomplish it, she goes on another whim, and she wants you to accomplish something else. So you're all working together, but you're trying to like pass along secret information by the knowledge that you're putting out onto the board, which I've seen that single element, not necessarily with putting something out onto the board, but trying to share like nuggets of information to pass them along in other games.
Well, it's basically like the radio token from The Crew.
Yeah, exactly.
Playing a card, you're just putting something on the table that's supposed to say, "Hey, here's a clue. We can't talk though." And I love that limited communication restriction.
There's
like
something so satisfying when you figure that out, or when you're the one conveying that information. You're like, "Oh man, it actually worked."
That was a great clue. I did
got it right. It's even the same satisfaction you get from like games like Dixit or
Just One.
Yes, exactly. Stuff, like being the one to get that across. So this one, just like the combination of all those elements, is basically what landed it on the list for me.
Yeah, again, being rewarded for those clever plays is just so satisfying.
Yeah, and again, the artwork's super beautiful in this one as well. Like, it just has a really striking box art and cover and artwork on the cards and the garden board and everything like that. So this is one that now that it's readily available, I 100% want to get it, and I just think I can never have enough. For me anyways, enough cooperative games in my collection, because I've realized more and more that even though it's not my favorite genre of board game, I'm in a situation so often where either because of the people I'm playing with don't play board games as much, or because they don't feel as confident and they need assistance, and if I play a game that's competitive, it's hard to assist the person you're competing with. That cooperative game is such an easy thing to default to be like, oh, don't worry, we get to work together, like I can give you advice when you want, or we can work out the best move is whatever. So I just feel like I more and more I want some extra cooperative games in my collection, and new ones to refresh things. So Paint the Roses is probably going to be the next cooperative game that I think I get. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's an excellent pick. I'll just say right now, you stole mine.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice. So, I have the right to call it a steal because it was in my most anticipated games of 2022. I think I had it 6 or 7, but it wasn't in yours.
I know, and
so you stole my excitement.
And I don't think I fully knew what the rules of the game were, or beyond noticing that the box art was really beautiful. I don't think I had properly delved into what it was, and when I did, I'm like, oh yeah, this looks really good.
And you know what made me delve into it more? Because same as I'm not really into the whole Alice in Wonderland theme a whole lot either, and I like cooperative games less than you do, but I'm kind of I like the idea of cooperative games, but a lot of them end up making me feel a little underwhelmed by the end, so I kind of want a cooperative game for my collection. I feel like this one, with that limited communication and the logic deduction and kind of the presentation, I feel like is one that I would get to the table more. But and it's also published by North Star Games, but it's a first-time designer. I think Ben Goldman. Yeah. So whenever an established publisher takes a chance on a first-time designer, that always kind of piques my interest a little more too. So yeah, it's a great pick. I'm gonna see. I think I picked. Okay. I picked a backup pick just in case, because I had a feeling that you might have picked this one. Yeah. So we'll go into my secondary pick here.
Cool.
So if I wasn't going to get Paint the Roses for under 40, then for under 40 instead, I would get QE, which stands for quantitative easing. Yeah. So I think a lot of places you're going to see this. It's probably going to be listed at over 40, like 42, 44, but there is a local store here that has it for 37 or 38 right now, so might pick it up. Nice. I don't remember the designer's name right now, but it's published by BoardGameTables.com, who does On Tour and Sequoia, which we've talked about before. Excuse me. So QE is an auction game where basically there's no limit on what you can bid. So you can come out right out of the gate and say, I bid 86 trillion or whatever. There's no limit, and I can't remember. The conceit of the game is something I think it's whoever Is it whoever spent the most or whoever spent the least money at the end?
I think it's whoever spent the least, because you can bid whatever you want. So like the incentive is like, well, what's going to stop me from bidding $1 million?
Right, of course, right? Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes a lot. Why did I even have to think about that? I'm like, which way is like
the game?
This guy's like, what's this idiot thinking? Of course, it's one.
The game would be a lot less interesting if it was just like, all right, it's your turn.
I bid infinity.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy wins again.
Won again.
Bill, I told you can't use that strategy. But yeah, so it just sounds. We've been talking for a while about how we were kind of like, if there's one genre in particular that we've been kind of late to the party when it comes to board games, in terms of a genre that we know we love, is definitely auction games. We feel like we kind of missed the boat for a while, and we're trying to catch up on these. There's tons of them we want to play. QE is one that I've been wanting to play for a long time. I don't know if it's one that'll, outrank stuff like Modern Art for me and stay in the collection like long term, but I think I am going to probably pick it up next time I swing by Victory Pines.
Can't hurt to have more auction games in the collection. Well, I mean, or could, because that just means less time playing Modern Art.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about this bit now.
Yeah, big shoes to fill for QE.
This is one of the ones I thought I might have stolen from you, and there's still one more I think I might be stealing from you.
Man.
And I feel like you're going to be
I came prepared with the backup picks just in case, but yeah.
Okay, this one I don't think I've stolen from you.
I think we're both going to be buying Paint the Roses.
Yeah. Okay, so this one, I have a bit of some self-interest in this one, and a selfish reason for putting this on here. So yeah, and that's my pick for my $60 pick that I want to buy is the new version of Fjords. And that's because I backed the new version of Fjords and never received the new version of Fjords.
Wait, but it just never showed up?
Never showed up. I followed up multiple emails, no response. I've kind of resigned.
What?
I've resigned myself to the fact that I'm probably...
So this is just calling out...
Minorly calling out, but I've also just resigned myself to the fact that I do need to get the new version of Fjords in my collection. I've been wanting it for a while, and I either just choose to keep waiting and hope that one day my emails are responded to or it shows up, or I just buy it, and the worst case, I get a second copy arrives and I just sell one of them, right?
Right.
So I've realized I'm just going to buy it. It's in stock.
But did you back the standard version, or did you buy one of the upgraded deluxe? Because I've only seen the standard in stock now. I think the deluxe...
it's only the standard in stock. I think I backed... I definitely didn't pay the most you can pay, but I definitely didn't get the entry one either. So I'm going to miss out on some of those extras.
How many tiers were there for Fjords?
I thought there was 3. Either way, I've decided I'm going to buy this now. Okay. I want it enough. I waited way longer than I was expecting to wait. I don't think my copy's showing up, which kind of sucks that I paid for it.
Are you mostly buying this because I keep asking you about it? I'm like, when's Fjords coming?
No,
You're like,
no.
Gotta get Carlo off my back to buy this game already.
In part to shut you up, but also no, literally just because I really, really want to play Fjords again. I was so excited for the campaign when it launched, and I realized now, the other day, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I've been waiting way longer than I even expected to wait for Fjords. Now everyone else is out there playing it.
Yeah.
So I think originally it was supposed to have started shipping to backers February, March 2022. We're almost getting to the end of 2022.
It's been installed. Man, it's been months that I've been looking at it thinking, should I get it? Because is Dylan's copy going to arrive? And I'm like, no, I'll just play Dylan's copy first, because I don't know if I'm going to want to own it. I really like the game, but I definitely want to revisit it. It's been a few years, but
yeah. For those who don't know, Fjords is basically a game where you have 2 phases to the game, which is something we really enjoy in our board games. The first phase, you're essentially building out the map that you're going to have an area control kind of game on, or territory control, whatever you want to call it, by placing tiles, and you're lining up, plains or grassland to grassland, mountains to mountains, water to water, with these hexagon type tiles, and you're creating the map essentially for yourself, but you're creating it with in mind thinking, where am I going to place these little, I don't know what they're called, huts or
I think they're huts or villages or something,
which is essentially where you're going to start being able to place your tokens in the second phase of the game. So you're trying to strategically place them in spots where that you can gather a whole bunch of territory without having to compete with your opponent, hopefully, or if you notice your opponent going for something, you're trying to contest it so they don't have an easy way to grab a bunch of territory.
Honestly, for anyone who might have watched our live stream or who watches the channel regularly and hears us talk about Blue Lagoon, there's a lot of Blue Lagoon in here.
Yeah, that's the first. When I played Blue Lagoon for the first time, that was the first thing I thought of. Was oh man, this is
for
sure inspired in some way, or one of them. But I think Fjords came first. But one of them for sure was
Blue
inspired.
Lagoon was also inspired by Samurai,
Yes.
which was before but yeah, who inspired
it goes on.
Yeah, exactly.
Either way,
some guy hundreds of years ago inspired the whatever. So
either way, I'm gonna buy this new version of Fjords now, probably in the next order I get, especially because it's in stock everywhere, so I can finally enjoy Fjords without having to just go to my local board game cafe as the only place I can play it, because the original version you can't find anywhere; it's out of print.
So for a while now.
Play it.
And I was gonna say, and I don't know if you mentioned, the original game was 2-player only, and it was designed by Franz Dylann, who has now passed away. But this version has some modifications and variants from Phil Walker Harding, and plays up to 4 or 5 or
plays up to 4, I believe. It's 4, and it's a minimum of 4. I don't think it might go to 5, 4 for sure. And yeah, it's definitely like modules that Phil Walker Harding's essentially designed that you can like add on to the game. I don't necessarily think it needed those additions, but it doesn't hurt the game to have the additions if you like. You're not obligated to use them. It's just things if you want. And who knows? Maybe I'll end up playing one of the modules, and it'll be like the definitive way to play Fjords. I would know that by now if my copy showed up. Anyways, that is Fjords. That is my $60 pick.
Cool. And art by Beth Sobel. Big fans.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
All right, so now on to my under 60 pick. Let me see if I can remember it. Oh yes, so my under 60 pick actually coming in at just over $40. Usually 42 to 45 wherever I've seen it listed. That is Paper Tales. So this is a drafting game from, I believe, 2017 or so. Designer is Masato Usugi, who also designed Welcome to the Dungeon. I think that's the only other game of his I've played. He's also designed Durian, which is one of the Oink games that I have not played. But yeah, basically in this game, so it's a drafting game for 2 to 5 players. It says it plays in about half an hour. And credit to both Kellen from Board Game Barrage and the guys at So Very Wrong About Games for sort of championing this game. I don't think I've heard anyone else really in the industry talk about this game, and they've really got me excited about it. So I kind of fell in love with drafting, first off playing Magic the Gathering back in the day. Other card games, we love drafting. Then like in terms of actual modern day board games, I got Seven Wonders, but after a while, I moved on from it a few years ago. I culled my copy, and I've kind of been searching for that next like go-to drafting game, and I have It's a Wonderful World in my collection, and I don't mind it. I've played it a few times, but I kind of want something with a little more player interaction, and Nidavellir also is a different type of drafting, hasn't quite hit there, so I'm looking for that kind of replacement for Seven Wonders that I haven't found yet. So
I think I like It's a Wonderful World. This is an aside, but I think I like it better than you from the time I've played it. But the only reason I haven't got it is because I want to get on It's a Wonderful Kingdom now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. Yeah, I guess that's all. But like, it's a 2-player version of that one. I don't know if I'm. I'm sure we'll talk about. We'll probably compare those two at some point on the channel. Yeah. But in Paper Tales, there's a couple of really interesting things. The most interesting thing, in my opinion, is the fact that your cards that you draft and that you gain and you add into your tableau, you can get like characters and buildings and all kinds of stuff, but your cards age. And so they age and they either like die out or fade away kind of over time. So a lot of the cards that you're drafting, you have to decide how early in the game or late do I want to play these, and how are they going to, like, how's the timing of this ability going to work out with other cards? Because the game is all about combos and synergies. It sounded almost like Fantasy Realms-ish in that sense, where like you can suddenly find this one card that combos really well with this other one or these 2 other cards. And there's also like a kind of like a combat or military system, kind of Seven Wonders style, where you have your characters kind of, you can draft characters that have kind of fighting abilities so that you can succeed in battle. So, and the fact that it just plays in half an hour, it looks like it crams a lot in, and everything I've read about it and heard about it just sounds like it offers a lot more than the kind of like it's relatively easy to get into in terms of the rules, but offers a more complex decision space, and those are usually among my favorite games. So drafting, playtime, artwork's really cool and stuff. Yeah, can't wait to try Paper Tales, and that was another one that I saw locally here.
Nice. That's actually one that when you said it, I think I went, oh, because I thought I knew what you were talking about. And then I realized, like, no, this is not what I thought.
Oh, okay.
I got it mixed up with Paper Dungeons.
Oh, okay.
I had that one in our last Games 1 to 5 video.
And you're like, where was this guy seeing it for $60 or $45?
And then as you started describing, I'm like, this is not what I thought it was.
Okay.
Yeah, this one I hadn't heard of. It sounds cool, though.
Okay. Check it out.
And you're right. Like, I guess that we have drafting games in our collection, but I haven't bought a new drafting game like that where it's a heavy part of the game, a heavy mechanic in the game in a while.
And that's the thing is I'm looking for that, like, we are playing a drafting game, not a game that has drafting.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of those other ones, like even stuff like Sushi Go, whatever, great game, but I want to have one that's more interactive.
Yeah.
Especially more interactive than It's a Wonderful World, even though that I like that, that's more of an engine builder almost.
Yeah.
But anyway, that is Paper Tales.
Good pick.
Thank you.
All right, you ready to find out if I stole another one?
Yes. Wait.
Okay.
I don't think you did. I'm like 95% sure this is not a steal.
Okay. And maybe if I'm mixing up and you actually never even had an interest in this game. For some reason, I thought you did. I can remember. My pick for this category is a game called The Initiative.
Oh yeah, I know the game, but no, this was never on my radar.
So this one's mostly on my list because in the last couple months, and I don't want to actually I don't want to call this a party game. That's not necessarily what I think. I'm not saying that's what it would be classified as, but I don't know what else to classify this kind of like section of games where they're better with like. Even if it's not a huge group of people, even if it's only like 4 people around the table, where it's less about like let's sit down and do a bunch of strategy and who's going to win, and more about just like having fun with the activity in front of you kind of thing. And in the last couple of months, I've had so many instances where I've been playing those kind of games specifically, and I've had to borrow some from your collection because I don't have a lot of them. Like I have So Clover, which plays up to 6, and I love So Clover, but I borrowed just one from you, Wavelength, Monstrosity, and there's other ones that I've then looked up and been like, oh, I should go get this, I should go buy this or whatever. And this one is a little bit interesting because it's a cooperative game. It only plays up to 4, and I think it is like best at 2. Best at 2, but. The fact that it can play up to 4 and it is this activity where you're essentially just code breakers and you have this map in front of you and you're going into rooms and you're unveiling these tiles and gathering them, and the tiles are going to be parts of the clue that you're trying to break on this little like you insert like the card I think into it, and you actually like pull the little doors down to see like what each
it's very like tactile kind of exactly. Toy factor.
Yeah, it's like what does this glyph equal? This glyph that we've figured out is an E, and that's revealed. So you have that like nice satisfying thing of like revealing the clue. It plays in like 30 to 60 minutes. It doesn't take very long, and it's a campaign style game. So you beat a mission or lose the mission, and you move on regardless. So whether you win or lose, you're moving on, and you're constantly going through like the campaign feel of it, which even from Decorum, which I played recently, it kind of showed me that you don't have to have like it wasn't the only one, like also My City showed me this, but you don't have to have like this super deep story narrative whatever for a campaign game to succeed, like or like have that campaign structure, whatever you want to call it. So the fact that this is kind of this more activity style game, you can play it cooperatively, you can play with minimum 2, but you can play it up to 4 as well, and you're just kind of working together to crack codes. Like it just sounds really fun. It's one of those kind of games that I just want to have. Again, there's a reason I don't want to classify it as party game because it's not that, but I don't know what else to call it. I feel like it's
I know what you mean. It's because it feels like it's in a bit of a different space because it's not a competitive game, but it's also a cooperative game that feels more adjacent to something almost outside the board game space.
Like cooperative game like The Loop is very different from The Initiative, right? And it's because The Initiative, I guess, skews more towards that party feel, and I just don't know what else to call that. But anyways, I'd like to have more games like that in my collection, and The Initiative, that's where it came on my radar. It's a little bit pricey for what it sounds like it is, and that was my only hesitation. I don't know how quick I'll be like running out to buy this one, but this might be one that when it goes on sale, and then I guess technically it no longer falls into my $8 price tag. But eventually that's might be when I pick it up, or who knows, maybe I'll end up having sold a bunch of the games that I'm calling, and I'll be like, it's time to go get The Initiative. But at some point I would like to get it. It sounds fun, and that is my pick for the $80.
Cool. I know Jeff and Jamie of Foster the Meeple are huge fans of this game. I know they've talked about it a lot on their channel. If you ever pick it up, I'd be curious to try it out.
Sweet.
And I'm always surprised when I was kind of looking over at your phone, and I was reminded the designer Corey, I always forget how to pronounce his name, Konietzka or whatever. Like he's got to design like Battlestar Galactica and like Star Wars Outer Rim, I think. Like he designs these pretty heavy games, negotiation games, whatever, and then stuff like this seems to have quite the range on him.
And I just got reminded here. The other cool thing I like about this game is that the theme of it is that it takes place in the 90s, and you're a bunch of teenagers in the 90s. Which because we grew up in the 90s, I think I've always like, even when I watch movies and shows where that's kind of the setting, there's just this extra like gravitational pull I have towards that
even
genre.
Though you technically only became a teenager in the very, very, very early 2000s.
I wasn't a teenager in the 90s, but I grew up in the 90s. I remember. Isn't that weird though? Actually, not that you say it, because like I always say like, oh yeah, I grew up in the 90s, and yet like I turned into a teenager in like 2001
or whatever,
But yet I don't associate like my childhood or like my growing up or whatever ever with the 2000s.
Me neither.
For some reason, I always just say the 90s.
Because you already had your nostalgia established by the time you became a teenager. You already had your favorites. But
that's true.
That's another discussion.
And the PlayStation 1 came out in the 90s, and
there you go.
That is my childhood.
Before and after that moment, right?
Yeah. All right. That's my pick.
Cool. All right. So 80 and under. My pick for this is a game called Village.
Yes.
This is the second edition, and here's the thing. So I waffled on this pick for a while for a couple of reasons. Honestly, for a long time, I thought this game was out of print, and it is. But there's a couple places in Canada, and I'm gonna say right now, we're filming 3. What?
For a long time, I thought this game was out of print, and it is.
Well, I said like they're not. What I meant was I didn't think I'd be able to find it anywhere. I didn't know it was available anywhere. They stopped printing it long ago, but there's still copies that certain places have in stock.
Yeah.
So, and they're actually coming out with a new big box edition of this game at some point in 2023 that includes expansions and has updated artwork and et cetera, et cetera. But it's a combination of I don't want to wait for it, and secondly, I have never played the game, and I don't know that never playing a game I want to start off with the big box $100 version or whatever. Yeah. So this is designed by Inca Brand and Marcus Brand. The only other game of theirs I've played is Exit the Abandoned Cabin. They do, I'm pretty sure, all the Exit games, and when we covered it on the channel, I mentioned how I want to try more of their games because it was such an interesting concept, but just the idea of a one-time escape room, I didn't really want to go back into any of those. But and I don't know a whole lot about the game, but what has really drawn me into this since I very first heard of it was that it is a worker placement game in which your workers, there's actual progression of time in the game, and your workers actually die and have to be buried. And and I think one of the possible end game conditions is when the graveyard fills up or something like that. So we've talked a lot about worker placement games on the channel, and for those who watch the channel regularly, you probably know that a lot of my favorite worker placement games are ones where you have a variable number of workers, or that you can increase your worker base in some interesting way that isn't automatic. I don't need to use this opportunity to take Beast Rodin down a peg, but the whole, every round you just add a worker to your supply, yeah, it's fine, but I prefer in Agricola where you can choose to upgrade your workers, but you need to, increase the size of your house first, that sort of thing. Even Dune Imperium where you can get a third one, but you don't have to.
Now that you mentioned the village mechanic of your workers dying, does it not feel like that is a mechanic that should be in Agricola?
Yeah, absolutely.
It should be that they die off, or that if you don't feed them, you don't get minus points. They just die and you lose the worker. Right?
Honestly,
for how punishing that game is.
It's true. I'm surprised that it didn't, and I can't believe I never even thought of that. But yeah, it's true.
that should have
been a part of Agricola. They were trying to make it as punishing as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this game, they kind of make it so that death isn't a bad thing. You get honor or glory. So I think depending, again, I don't know the rules, but I imagine depending how or when these people die off or whatever, they grant you victory points and that sort of thing. So again, I just love this way that you're kind of trying to balance the people that are dying versus, again, I don't know if you can acquire new workers. It's just a game I've always been fascinated by, and the reason why I'm okay with getting this kind of older version is I know there's tons of people online who've already said, oh, I don't like the new artwork in this new version, I'm going to stick with my old version. So even if the big box version comes out and I love this game and I like the new artwork, I think I'll be able to get rid of this older version quite easily. So it's currently $78 and it's only in stock, I think, one place in Canada. So I'm going to ask you right now, we're filming 3 videos today. Can you wait at least a week for this one to go out? Because if this video goes out and I haven't decided yet, someone's going to see this and be like, what, Village is in stock? And someone's going to go snap it up before I buy it. So
okay.
I need at least a few days to decide, but
no promises, but I'll keep that in mind now.
So yeah, that is Village.
Nice. All right, my $100 pick, and I think it's right at $100, or it's fluctuated from above below depending on the retailer. It should be sometimes. It should be no surprise that it's a campaign game, and that's mostly because I find that these days, if I'm going to spend that much on a board game, it's usually because it's a game that I feel like is going to last a long time. And the last time we did this, I had Clank.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, didn't you do that one last time?
I did Clank Legacy on the last one, which I still haven't purchased. Now? So now I feel like I should also say I'm just basically stocking up on my list of campaign games I need to buy.
Meanwhile, you played one session of Sleeping Gods with us, however long you're I'll just start new campaign. What about our Sleeping Gods campaign,
I still want to play Sleeping Gods. So this one, I believe it was Foster the Meeple that tipped me off to it. I could have sworn. I don't want to say that definitively because I could be misremembering because it was a while ago.
Just give Foster the Meeple the credit. Yeah. They're good people.
But if I'm right, then full credit goes to Jeff and Jamie there. This is called Familiar Tales. And it's it's more of
Plaid Hat games.
Yeah, and it's more of a like whimsical theme and artwork to it. Like almost like it reminded me a lot of like the critters from like Everdell, that kind of like
for sure.
look and feel to it.
Yeah.
It's
not only campaigning, it's storytelling.
Yes,
very much.
And that's honestly what drew me so a lot to it. Is like I really appreciate good storytelling in board games. I feel like that's a really hard. It is just a hard medium.
Absolutely.
To tell really good stories that you're actually invested in, because you kind of just usually want to get to the actual
that's the thing, you don't want it to get in the way.
This one does use an app, which I almost like. I'm not for turning a bunch of board game mechanics into digital apps and stuff like that, but this one specifically uses it for the storytelling, I believe, and like actually like essentially like narrating and telling you that story, which I feel like could be more of an effective way in board games. If you're going to use it to tell me the story, so that you don't have to rely on someone reading, and maybe they're not like the most engaging reader or whatever, and like anything that can help me get invested in the story and everyone on the table get invested, I'm for. And this one also has a searchable rule book in there too, so if you're having to actually like look for something, you don't have to like be like, oh, yeah, what happens when you do that? You can just kind of search it up in there. So that's the integration there. Beyond that, like I especially with campaign games, but like I mentioned at the start, I don't often like dig deep into board game like rules and mechanics. So especially with campaign games, like when I got Oathsworn, all I knew about it when I backed it was it's about taking down bosses. I actually loved getting it in, sitting down with the rule book and just taking a couple hours to like flip through it. That's what I'd be looking forward to with Familiar Tales. But essentially, it's what you come to expect. Like you have your storybook, or in this case, the app. It's telling you the story. You have your individual character. You have your skill cards, and you're leveling up as you go, and you're taking on enemies and stuff like that. But just all with this kind of more woodland theme, or I don't even know what, like fairy tale theme, I guess is the best way to put it. So this is one specifically that I always worry, because I'm getting there's so many campaign games I want to play. Like you said, we're playing Sleeping Gods, Oathsworn right now I'm playing as well. Frosthaven's coming out soon. I want to get Clank Legacy. Like it never stops. Familiar Tales to me is one that like I might just get one day when I'm like in a relationship and I just want to play with like one other person, and we can just like have it set up and just go back to, because it's also that inviting theme to like play with a partner or whatever. Right. So I almost think that this one is not one I'm going to rush out to get, but at some point that might be the situation where I'm like, this is where I want to get Familiar Tales. So if you're single out there and you want to play Familiar Tales, I realized as I was saying, like it sounds like I'm petitioning people, being like, oh, you want to date someone who wants to play Familiar Tales?
And you're already buying the game, right?
Yeah,
they don't.
Yeah, exactly. I'll buy the game too, but I'm not going to buy the first meal on the first date if I'm buying Familiar Tales. Okay. Anyways, Familiar Tales, another campaign game. I'm always for campaign games. This one is going to have to come after Clank Legacy, so I probably won't get it right away. But when I am going to spend this much money on a game, it'll eventually be the one I get.
Nice. Cool. I don't know a whole lot about this, just because I'm not super into storytelling games, but I'd be open to trying it, of course.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Oh, that made me think right away. I think the other one by that company that came out, I think more recently, or maybe right before, Aftermath, also caught my eye. I think it's also kind of campaign story type thing, and it also has kind of like a anthropomorphic animals kind of look to it, but that one had a more like fighty kind of look to it than the kind of whimsical fairy tale. So just something I'm just saying you should look into Aftermath if you haven't heard of it.
No, don't remind me about it, because I feel like I can't look into any more campaign games.
Fair enough.
Remind me in like 3 years, and then I'll be like, okay, I'll take it on.
Okay, sounds good. All right, and my pick for the under 100 slot, I was so close to just sort of cheating and picking Dice Realms, but Dice Realms almost everywhere is over $100. There's one place that has it for like 98, but it's like $30 for shipping. So I think it's a cheating pick. So instead, I went for a game that I want a bit less than Dice Realms, but fits the criteria of under $100, and that is Hallertau. So this is a game that you have. This is a game that actually, when we a while ago did our 5 games we would steal from each other's collections video, I actually mentioned that one. And at the time I'd mentioned I would steal it because I feel like we're just never going to play it again together, because there's too many other games ahead of it that we want to play that are that kind of like level of complexity.
No, you know what? I'm going to bring it when we go to the cabin in November. I'm bringing it to the cabin.
Okay.
We're going to play all
good. Okay. Because I mentioned to you a couple times recently, I'm like, maybe I'll borrow it from you sometime to play solo. But here's the thing. I don't want to borrow your game and have it just sit there. I don't know when I'm going to get around to it. But I also don't want to be at home being like, I should play Hallertau solo, and then be like, oh, I guess I'll call up Dylan and see if I can go over and borrow it now.
I like how you said, I don't want to bore your game and have it sit there and never played, even though that's exactly what you did with Arkham Horror.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know. But that one's...
that's one I'm calling anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I'm going to probably need some help. I looked into that. I opened the box. I was a bit overwhelmed. Like, I'm not ready for Arkham Horror yet. But
maybe we'll bring that one to the cabin, too.
Yeah, maybe. I might have to watch a couple videos on that one. But Hallertau is a worker placement game by Uwe Rosenberg, and it's one that I have... Even when I played it, I remember thinking this is probably going to be best either solo or 2 players. I think BGG says it's best solo. This kind of very puzzly... It's not as multiplayer solitaire, I think, as some people make it seem because of the way the action spaces work and how you're having to like add more workers to an action space, like increasingly. So
I find the player interaction because of that specifically is like right where I'd want it. Like you're constantly competing, and the amount of times that we played and you would do something, I'm like, oh, that screws up because now like I have to pay more for that. If I pay more for that, I don't have enough workers now to do this.
Yeah,
like,
and especially the thing with the 4 quadrants and where certain rounds they clear off, but certain rounds other ones don't. So there's this fluctuation of like, one game you play, you might have these cheap actions over here, and one game those actions might cost way more, just the way that things unfolded kind of thing.
Yeah.
The main reason why I want to like own my own copy of this game and just explore the hell out of it is the cards, and it's what made me fall in love with Agricola. And it was probably my favorite aspect of Hallertau when we played it is play a card anytime. Play a card in your opponent's turn, play a card in your turn. Playing a card often lets you draw another card from a different deck. There's different decks of cards, different types of cards, and even within those types, there's different like subsections of cards, right? That you mix and match for the games. Like, there's just so much depth to explore there. I'd happily play it with 2 or more players, but I feel like if I owned Hallertau, I could see myself just kind of sitting there and playing it solo game after game over the course of, a few weeks, few months, whatever. So it's a game I just really want to own my copy of at some point, but because you have it and because it's like literally like $99, I've just been holding off for a while, but eventually I will own my own copy of this for sure.
So is it at the point now that if Uwe ever releases a game and you find out there's a bunch of cards in it that you're just immediately like, I'm gonna like it?
Probably. I mean, Bonanza is like pretty much a beer card game. I loved that. I can't remember if that new one, Oranienburger Canal, is gonna have cards. I know it's mostly tiling, but I think there's cards in it.
And there's the Bat one too.
Oh yes, I can't remember what it's called now.
That one has cards either.
It's not Iwari, something like that.
A Tiwa.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought of that the other day because you also like, it doesn't have as heavy focus on cards, but you also like New Spirit a lot that has like all the cards as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Tends to be a common theme is like that's probably the mechanic of his that you enjoy the most that he does.
Yeah, and even in Glass Road, the hand of the 15 specialist cards that you're choosing when to like. Yeah, he just always does really interesting stuff with cards. And that first time I played Hallertau and was just I think I had like 30 cards played at the end of the game. And I remember just thinking, there's so many more cards in the deck and so many synergies to explore. Yeah, very cool game. That is Hallertau.
Great pick. Okay. Those are our picks for the games, 5 games we want to buy at $20, $40, $60, $80, and $100. Let us know in the comments which games are on your radar. You can use our criteria. You can pick one for every single one, or you can just like hone in on a single one of those price points and say what you want to buy. Or if you want to roast us for the picks we have, or praise us for the picks we have, take to the comments as well. We always love to hear from you. Anything you want to add?
No, just if you enjoy these. I know last time we did one of these, we had a lot of feedback from people saying they really liked videos that focused on kind of like the price aspect of the hobby. So we've thought about maybe going forward, we might do other videos highlighting games at certain price points or whatnot. So let us know if you like those and want to see more of those.
Yeah, sounds good. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see ya.